ready?
Okay.
Can you hit go live, Julie? Okay, we'll just wait for everybody to get connected real quick. Able to waiting. Hey, hello everybody. Welcome to the very first ever Sentient Showcase. This one is being hosted by Kai Lun Qu. Hello, Kai.
Hey, how's everyone?
We're so glad that you're able to make it today and that you are willing to help us out with these critiques and our showcase session. If you're not familiar with the Sentient Showcase, it is an art contest that we will be running twice per year. Kai is our Alla Prima mentor here at Sentient, so he will be running several critiques today for our runners-up, and at the end we will announce our finalist. So I guess I'll hand it off to you, Kai.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, first of all, thank you guys so much for being here, and thank you guys so much for submitting all these incredible works. Like I was like looking through them, and everything was just wow. Like I was very impressed. So yeah, I was able to so basically I was able to kind of choose, or it was hard to choose. I didn't choose 4 works based on like how good they were. I chose the first 4 works just based on what we can kind of talk about. It doesn't necessarily mean they're also not good. They're all pretty good. It's just I chose 4 that I feel like would be kind of more appropriate and would have at least more than 1 or 2 talking points that I can kind of go over, right? So anyways, yeah, we can kind of get started with the first one. So this is Sarang? Am I saying that right?
Yeah, hi, that's Sarang, yeah.
Sorry. Oh, hi. Nice to meet you. Yeah, awesome. So yeah, let's see. So am I talking to Sarang right now?
Yeah, that's correct.
Hey, what's up? Yeah, first of all, nice work. Yeah, and also really nice reference. Yeah, no, this is honestly, shoot, I might actually steal this reference from you one day for one of my demos. Like, this is a really cool reference. I really like it. This is honestly one of the references I usually would go for when I'm trying to challenge myself. So I really like the fact that you were challenging yourself with this particular piece. So first of all, good job with that. And second of all, you actually did a pretty good job. I feel like honestly, aside from just like a few minor drawing issues, which I could talk about. So for instance, I'll just talk about the drawing issues for a few minutes, and then we'll get right into the colors, right? So in terms of drawing, I feel like the key to basically attaining that structurally sound drawing is by focusing not just on the positives, positive shapes, which is basically like, say for instance, like the eyebrows, the nose, which I can tell you were focusing on, and you did do a very good job in capturing. Like if you were to take a look at the eye right here, other than the fact that perhaps like it's slightly tilted or angled a little bit downwards, that's a pretty much easy fix. But the eye, nose, lips, I feel like in terms of shape are all done pretty good. The reason why I feel like they may not be, I guess, within like structurally like the right place is because of the negative shapes. And this is where we can actually this is what we can actually use to kind of fix our drawing, right? Because a lot of times I feel like people will be looking only at like the positive shapes, like the eyes, nose, like all the shadow shapes, right? People don't usually look at the negative shapes, which is basically the light shapes. So for instance, like the space between like the eyebrows and the forehead, space between like, say, the 2 eyes right there, these are places that I would actually recommend taking a closer look at. And this way it will kind of help you. So for instance, like, let's say if I was, and you know what, I'm going to segue into colors here. And while I'm segueing into colors, I'll fix the drawing up a little. So for colors, this is actually a very good example of, what we kind of want to do. So usually when we look at an image like this, the blue will look really light, right? So our instinct will be to reach for a light, which is actually what we did here. So if we were to just kind of take a look at what you have here, we can see it's like pretty light. It's like closing in on like almost a white, right? But if you were to actually really take a look at the actual blue that's being presented here in the reference, notice how saturated it is. It's a lot less, or it's a lot more chromatic in a way. Like there's a lot more chroma happening. Whereas instead of using titanium white or utilizing whites to showcase light, it's really using chroma. And that's one of the things that I want to talk about, right? So it's like not being afraid of utilizing chroma. So for instance, let's just take this. And while I'm, taking a bit of like this blue right here, I'm also just looking at the negative shapes. So I'm looking at the negative shape here and I'm asking myself how tall or what is the height of that negative shape compared to, say, for instance, that positive dark shape. I can see that it most likely is somewhere, maybe around equal length, right? Definitely not as tall as maybe you have had it. So just gonna kind of make it like that for right now. And then let's say if I were to just kind of cover this entire area up. So basically what I'm doing right here is I'm just kind of replacing the light blue that you have with just like more of a pure blue.
Right.
And the same thing can be said basically, and also, like for like, say like the darks too, we can kind of start going in a little bit more. And basically right now I'm very much just kind of going in and asking myself, okay, what is the negative shapes between here to there, for instance, here to there, for instance. Like I'm just kind of like locating and measuring, utilizing that mindset, right? But anyways, after that, what I would say is basically, take a look at the hair too, right here. So notice how, in fact, what you can see right here. So first of all, let's just darken this value up just a little bit more in the hair. And as we're doing that, we can also take a look at the distance between, say, for instance, here to here. Like, what is that angle relationship? Somewhere going to be this angle, right? So by looking at that, we can see that the ear is probably going to be somewhere here, right? And next, really important, again, we're going to use chroma instead of light, which I see you have like this nice light orange right here. But if you really were to take a look, it's actually like a very chromatic red that's kind of appearing right here, acting as like the light. And it's only dropping off a little bit more into, say, for instance, like a bit of a lighter pink over here. But everything else here is very much within, I guess, a bit more of a chromatic color instead of like a devalued lighter color. But anyways, is this kind of making sense so far?
Yeah, this looks so better.
Yeah. But I mean, notice how I didn't, even though I didn't even draw anything, I'm just kind of like intensifying the chroma, and like,
Right.
raising down the value, intensifying the chroma. That in itself is already just kind of helping push everything out, right? And
Right.
one last thing that I would say, I'm trying to give, let's see. I think one last thing that I would say is, for instance, like take a look at the left side of the face too, right? So for instance, like over here, again, if I were to like take a look at the color that you have here, it's much more of like a grayer purple almost, right? Like it's like grayer purple. But if we were to kind of take a look at the exact color of this is a lot more chromatic. It's actually more leaning towards like even alizarin, right? A little bit more,
Right.
yeah, something like so. And then once we're here, we can even kind of take a look almost at like the light shape here, because something that I want you to do next time is try not to, I guess, hyper focus on one area. So this happens Like for instance, like notice how light this is compared to a dark. That happens when we're only looking at one light and one dark, right? It's important for us to always compare our light and darks to everything, like as a unity. So, you know, when you're looking at the reference right here, take a look at this, the light of the left side of the face right here and compare it to the light of the right side. You can see that it's actually a lot darker. You know what I mean? So if we were to just kind of bring that down just a little bit more. And same with the eye too, right? And notice how chromatic actually that eye can actually go as well. So basically I'm just kind of going in here, raising or like lowering that value of the eye right there, while at the same time just kind of raising a bit more of the saturation happening over here. Same thing for the nose as well. So notice how I'm just kind of like, and for the shadows, right? I'm not going too much within chroma. I'm very much just kind of, you know, raising the values down. The reason why is because the light's already chromatic. So every time we have something like where it's, you know, if your shadows like not as chromatic, the light needs to make up for it because there always has to be a bit of a balance. Does that kind of make sense? But anyways, yeah, as you can see right now, what I'm doing is, you know, I'm taking a look here. And again, I'm taking a look at the negative shape. So what's the negative shape between this shadow shape right here of the nose compared to the lip? I can definitely see the lip or the top lip being a little bit closer up and also a little bigger like so. You see that?
Right. Yeah.
And to hopefully to kind of give you guys a bit of an idea on just how simple it is to actually capture these shapes, I'm not using a tablet right now to draw this. I am using my mouse. So if I can use my mouse to, you know, just kind of get like the overall big shapes, you should definitely be able to use your brush to kind of like make these measurements out. Like this, me using a mouse hopefully will kind of show you the fact that it actually is, you know, it is actually very simple to like capture all these shapes out. The only thing is we just need to like focus on these shapes. That's like the only thing that we want to do. So for instance, like right here, I'm going to also make it a bit more chromatic. Yeah, but you see what I'm trying to say? And notice how just me bringing out that chroma allows for the form to kind of come out. And when there's chroma, we also want to kind of lower, you know, lower that value down just a little bit more. And if you wanted to, for instance, like let's say you can lower it down like so, you can have a bit of say for instance, like, you know, you start out pretty dark like so, and then as it gets closer and closer to the light, you can have it you know, get lighter and lighter until it finally reaches like that breaking point of the highlight, which is like a nice saturated chromatic light. And that basically will kind of give you the impression of an atmospheric glow. Is that gonna make sense? So
Yeah.
Anyways, cool. I think that does it for you. Do you have any questions before I move on to the next person?
Oh, this is great. So I think I'll be, continuing with the other programs also, because I have been following Sentience, course
That's
content,
awesome.
and it has been really nice. So
Perfect.
yeah, it helps in pushing the view. So eventually, I'm looking forward to more course content from Sentience.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Well, I'm so happy you've been like following us for so long. And yeah, again, like I said, good job. Like this is definitely a very challenging image. Trust me. Like here, and we can do like a before and after, like before and after.
Yeah.
Hopefully you can kind of see like the difference, right? Like this is actually this is definitely not bad. Like a lot of people would be making the same mishaps by looking at this image. Trust me, you're not the only one. But this is just something I figured out within my work since I've been painting a lot of chromatic stuff. I realized chroma can substitute color, substitute value sometimes. So anyways, yeah.
Understood.
Awesome.
Thank you so much, Kai.
Of course.
Thank you.
All right, so let's move on to the next one, shall we? Try to keep these between like 13 minutes to 15 minutes. So hopefully we'll have time to kind of get to everyone. Anyways, so Joe, so the second one that I have here is Joe Cook. Are you here by any chance? Feel free to. No? I think I believe Oh, I think you are here, Joe. Are you there? Huh. Okay. Well, I'll just get started with the critique then, and if you want to come by, feel free to like just feel
Joel
free to
He said
says
his
he's
mic wasn't
here.
working.
Yeah, he's here, but his mic
Oh.
isn't working. Joel, if you want, I can moderate for you guys. So go ahead and type any comments or questions that you have.
Gotcha. Okay, no, that's totally fine. Yeah, like Joe, if you have any questions about what I'm doing here, feel free to just type in the question, and I'll have one of the sentient ladies like read it out to me. Anyways, all right, cool. So first and foremost, great drawing. Like when I saw this, I felt like I there's not really a lot to be said about the drawing. I feel like the drawing's pretty solid. Other than just perhaps like a few things. One thing that always eludes people is like just the back head right here. You know what I mean? I definitely feel like we can kind of pull that back just a little bit, but that's pretty much it on the drawing. I feel like in terms of drawing, you pretty much have it nailed. So that makes my job easier. We'll just talk straight up about the colors, right? So I do like the fact that you have that you're kind of, amping up the values here compared to the reference. The reference is very, like a photography studio-esque, right? So I do like that you're raising the values up a little. One thing that I would suggest though is utilizing that red, yellow, and blue methodology, right? As well as the fact that it seems like you're trying to make this light, the left side of the face glow a little. I'll show you how to do that as well. First and foremost, let's just kind of start out with this. So what I'm gonna do first is I'm just gonna.
I think my mic works now.
Oh, perfect! I can hear you. Nice.
Okay. Yeah.
What's up, man? Hey.
Hey.
Okay, cool. So let's see. First and foremost, I'm gonna start off with like the shadows, right? So right now I think I want to unify the shadows a little just because I can see that the light's very yellow, right? So when there's yellow, we want to kind of, I guess, balance that out with two of any of the color of any of the other colors from the color wheel, right? So it can either be red or it can either be blue. So I'm just gonna make it a bit of a red right here, right? Maybe leaning a little bit towards brown, but more red. So for instance, I'm just going to kind of go ahead and do that. And as you can see, as I'm just kind of balancing this out, it's going to help balance out that yellow as well as balance out the shadows overall. And as I'm doing this, I can even like, push this area just back just a little bit more. Okay. And another thing that I would say is, okay, so now you have red, yellow, and I do want the background to kind of show through a little bit. So I'm going to go in for a bit of a blue right here, perhaps like a bit of a darker blue. And what it is I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of go in, maybe make it a little less saturated. And what it is I'm doing here is I'm very much just trying to increase a bit of that shadow of the dark values that you already set out. Of course, I'm not trying to like, raise it too much because I do like what you have going on here, which is, you kind of equalize a lot of the values, which is good. But basically, yeah. So basically now I have blue, yellow, and red, which is basically all my subtle color wheels, or the basic color wheels. So now what I can do is I can start actually raising the values up. So for instance, right here, within the highlights or within like the light areas, it's really yellow, right? So I think what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to kind of go in here and perhaps introduce just a little bit of red within, and notice what happens when I introduce that. It's going to balance that out a little. And I'm not increasing or decreasing the value. I'm very much just kind of shifting that value. Same thing here. So I have yellow, I have red. I'm gonna actually make that into a bit of a blue, and I'm just gonna add a little bit of blue right here. Oops. And then now I have this, yellow and blue. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna kind of go in, or perhaps like a bit of a red right here. So notice I'm not really playing with values. I'm very much just kind of playing a little bit more with just balancing colors, right? But notice what happens when I do that. It kind of will balance everything out a little bit, but a little bit better.
It also makes it feel kind of warmer too. Like
It does, yeah, because keep in mind, everything around us is comprised of red, yellow, and blue. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
anytime we are faced with something like that, we always have to balance. You know, if there's like yellow, we have to balance that with red and blue. If there's like blue, balance it out with red and yellow. And if there's already two colors, then that's easy. Just, you know, balance it out with like the color that you haven't done yet. So for instance, like right here, I have yellow, I have red. I'm gonna go in for perhaps a bit of a blue, maybe in the form of like a purple, right? And then I'm just gonna like use that as a bit of a midtone right there. And not only as the midtone, I can say, okay, well, what about like the highlight? And go in perhaps for even a bit of a lighter highlight. Oh, right there. And then just kind of balance that out a little bit more. And then over here, I can say for certain that we can kind of go in for a bit more of a lighter purple. Oops, gonna make that a little lighter. So notice how I'm just kind of playing around with like overall colors, right? Like,
yeah.
you already have yellow cover, so that's why I'm not even touching yellow anymore, right? For instance, like right here, that's gonna be a lot more green, right? And against that green, I feel like that can, you know, maybe be balanced into a bit more of a red. And then from that red, perhaps let's see, that can be entered into a bit more of a blue right there. Well, actually, colors that. Okay. Something like so. See what I'm trying to say? And notice how that kind of will help balance everything out just a little bit more, right? But anyways, and this is me just kind of like lowering that value just a little bit. Now I'm gonna show you kind of how we can kind of go about, I guess, working out a bit of that light, right? So you already have like a really nice light happening right here. So how can we emphasize that, right? We can emphasize that by basically going, okay, well, we can kind of go in over here. I'm gonna actually lower that opacity just a little bit. And usually what I want to do is I want to have a bit of like that value that I see kind of bleed through into the background. Notice what's happening like as soon as I do this.
Yeah, it's starting to like glow a little bit. Yeah.
And then if we want to balance out maybe a little bit of a darker red right here, we could. Oops. And you could still have areas where, you know, maybe it's like kind of the shadow going inwards towards the form, but then we can also have areas where very much like the shadow is kind of slowly dissipating as it gets closer and closer to the light. Thus, it kind of creates a bit of a like a light halo, if you will.
Yeah.
That kind of make sense?
Yeah.
And
because the red kind of ties in with the back of his head.
Exactly. Yeah. And here we can kind of take a look at the before and after so far. Before, after. You see what I'm trying to say? Right.
Yeah.
So, and then over here, because this is so chromatic, I think what I want to actually do over here for the dark actually is I want to just lower the value just a little bit. But also at the same time, I want to just kind of, you know, desaturate it just a little bit, like so. So kind of want to do this that way. The chroma and the saturation of the lights, you know, we're not like kind of fighting against that. Is that gonna make sense?
Yeah.
And then of course, you know, again, we can kind of have a balance here. So for instance, I'm gonna take a bit of this this purple, which represents what is purple? Purple is basically red and blue, right? So simple color that we can kind of take is that purple. Have that kind of go in here, balance out a bit of that yellow. You know, over here we can have a bit of purple, perhaps even have a bit of like this nice darker green. Green will basically represent like blue, you know. And then after that we can kind of go in here real quick and maybe perhaps get let's see, so we have greens here, we have reds here. You know, we can kind of maybe go back in there, get maybe a bit of violet right here. But notice how me just kind of stacking all these colors next to each other, like these color notes, it allows everything to just kind of get balanced out, right?
Yeah, because the previous one was very just yellow and like.
Yeah. And there's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with that. Like, I like that
Yeah.
you were able to harmonize everything, right? But hopefully this shows you how you can kind of push it to the next level, essentially.
Yeah.
Right?
Some of the problems I've had is even working in shadows and stuff, and because I kind of treated them as just cool, like supposed to be thin paint areas, and so I just have it drop off and have no chroma in them or something.
I mean, that's fine. I mean, you can, here's the thing, you can still have chroma like within shadows, right? Like for instance, let's say over here, I can like use a bit of like this, you know, dark right here. Oop. And then, oops, oh my God, my computer just glitched up a little. Oh, all right, cool. So I can kind of use a bit of like this, like say like this dark right here, just to kind of help draw out a bit more of, you know, the overall shadows here. But I think overall, like the shadows, like just create like notice how I'm just kind of creating indication right here. I'm not really going in and getting all the details, right? Like you don't really need to do that. And I think you already know that too, just from looking at your painting, which is good. You know, it means you're already a step ahead of like a lot of people. But anyways, yeah, so as you can see, you could just utilize a bit of details here and there, but overall, it's really about like, you know, what's happening, not like in the lights, but in the in-betweens, like what's happening in the in-betweens. That's usually when things are actually happening. So anyways, yeah, hopefully this all made sense to you. Do you have any last questions before I move on?
I was just going to say, the paint over looks great on there. Like, it's amazing how, it actually like emphasizes more of the glow on it, because that was the hard thing I had, is just I'd like back and forth between just adding a strong light on the face but not getting like a glow.
For sure. So, yeah, just remember red, yellow, and blue, just a basic color wheel. To give you an idea, you know, a lot of people, they always think like I had a lot of extensive training in color theory. I haven't. I've actually never even like, you know what I mean? I've never really done much practice or like study on color theory. I probably shouldn't say this as a mentor, but it like I want to tell you guys this, because I mean, if you guys are familiar with my work, I use a lot of colors, but it all stems from the basic idea of red, yellow, and blue. That's really how simple this thing can actually be. So me saying this, I just wanted to show you guys how simple it is. Like these concepts are very simple. They're so simple, you don't even need to study color theory to actually understand them. All you need to know is just what you learn in grade school, which is red, yellow, and blue is the basic color wheel. That's all you need to really know. You just kind of think about that and just kind of balance out the values. You already have the drawing in place and values in place. So now your job is easy. You just need to balance out red, yellow, and blue. So each time, think about it like this. This is okay. So this actually goes for everyone here. So every time you're painting, you're trying to like create, you know, well, first of all, first question you want to ask yourself is, what is the local color? Like what the local color is basically the first color that you see. So it can be a brown, yellow, green, whatever, right? That's the local color. Second question, how light and how dark is the value? You can think about it in terms of like value scale going from 1 to 10, 1 being pure white, 10 being pure black, right? And then just pick a color. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just pick a color that's like close enough, like gets you in the ballpark. By that time, you should already have a color that's pretty much in the ballpark. And next, after that, just ask yourself, okay, well, just lay that color down first. Or you can ask yourself by looking at a reference, should that be a little bit more red, yellow, or blue, right, as a subcolor, right? And after that, lay that color down. And after that, look at every value that's next to that color, whether lighter or darker. And each time you raise the value or lower the value of that set particular local color, just, you know, shift it between red, yellow, and blue. That's it. That's honestly the key. That's like, if you do that, your painting will look correct, even if you barely look at the color of the reference, you know? Yeah. So
then one more question I was wondering with is, I've always heard like people say that colors that you see in life aren't as vibrant as people paint them sometimes. So but for me, then I'd take those and I'd add like red, yellow, and blue, and it just end up being such a gray down color that like I can't use it for anything kind of. So I was wondering, like, do you kind of find like a base color and try not to go too far from that when you
try to find a base color, and you know, try to like not mix all the colors at once, because if you mix all the colors at once, then yes, you will come out with a gray, right? You know, you want to have separate strokes, and that's why we do a la prima. We can highlight separate strokes, That way we have a bit of like a red local color, or blue local color, or yellow local color all there, and our eyes are what's going to help us connect it all together. So notice how I didn't blend anything, for instance, like right here, yet if you were to like kind of take a look at it from far away, it kind of your eye just kind of does the work for you and just kind of blends together. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Makes sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's move on to the next person. Good job. All right. So let me see. Next person is Rebecca Johnson. Rebecca, are you here?
Yep.
Awesome. First and foremost, very, very good painting. Like I saw this at first, I wasn't going to critique this because I was like, I don't really see much wrong with it. So, I mean, I wasn't about to critique it. But then, I feel like because I didn't have too much, at least obvious things to say, it probably would have been a pretty good critique. So that's why I want to talk about this. For you, I feel like in terms of color and in terms of value, it's all pretty good. And of course, like a few minor drawing issues, but I don't really have to talk too much about that, right? Like, I'll brush upon it a little bit, but I think the one thing that I want to say is utilizing midtones for you. Makes sense? Yeah. So for instance, like right here, as we can see, like let's just start with the hair right here, right? Like the connection between like the forehead to the hair, right? If we were to take a look over here, notice how there's actually a pathway between going from the forehead into the hair, but that pathway is not as abrupt within value, right? There's actually a lot of, so let me just take this real quick. So for instance, like right here, if I notice, like if I were to just kind of go in, and I'm just gonna lower the opacity all the way down like so, and notice what happens if I were to just kind of go in here and just kind of calm that midtone down, right? Calm that midtone. And as I'm doing that, notice what I'm also doing. It also allows me a chance to kind of fix the drawing up a little, because as you can see, the forehead is definitely going to be upwards just a little bit more, right? So just by me kind of doing this, it not only allows me to kind of raise it up, fixing the drawing, but it also allows me to kind of create a bit more of, I guess, a natural pathway from the forehead into the hair. Right. And this is like what I like to talk about when I talk about edges, right? Like, for instance, like, the case of like hard edges and lost edges, right? For instance, like things like hair, like especially when hair is like kind of protruding out, like you already kind of have an idea over here, right? You did a pretty good job here, but I feel like we can still emphasize that idea a little bit more throughout the piece. So right now I'm just going to calm that down just a little bit. But yeah, does that kind of make sense? Or do you have any questions? Yeah.
No.
All right. Perfect. But right now I just kind of want to emphasize, some of the good things that I really see from here. So I really like the fact that you got both blue, yellow, and red here. And, that's just something I wanted to emphasize just because it kind of goes back to what I was talking about before with Joe, which is basically the the whole essence of color is red, yellow, and blue. So the fact that you were able to kind of capture these three colors, hopefully, that kind of shows you, oh, like if we were to kind of zoom out, it kind of creates like a really, really nice, transition. So I just wanted to like point that out, saying, tell you good job on that. Yeah, that's great. But, I don't know if that was like by accident or that was by purpose. If that was by accident, I just wanted to,
The hair was throwing me for a loop. It was,
well, you did a good job there.
Really
that's good
with what I was looking with and how to simplify it. And
yeah, for sure. So honestly, that's the reason why I want to point this out, because in case you did just do it accidentally, now I want to highlight what you did right. That way you can like just try to emphasize these situations a lot more in the future, right? Okay. So yeah, for instance, like right now, let's say, I'm only just going to talk about the places that you painted. So for instance, like some like the light shapes like right here, I'm not going to talk about that just because, you know what, I feel like that's kind of a cheap shot, like, critiquing things that you didn't paint. So I'm only going to be critiquing things that you have painted. Sound fair? So basically right here, as you can see, I'm just kind of pushing this back just a little bit more. And again, we go back to midtones right here. So I want you to take a look at that dark right there. And again, notice the fact that, it's kind of abrupt going from this dark into that light, right? So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to create a bit of a midtone and have that midtone kind of go kind of in between this shadow and that light. See that? And notice what that does once I zoom it out. You know what I mean? It's going to calm that a lot more down.
Yeah.
That kind of make sense? Yeah.
Yeah.
And one thing, another thing I would say is compression of values, right? Like localizing and compressing values. So for instance, like if we were to take a look at, say, if we were to kind of take a look at, say, like, for instance, the like the bottom portion of this face right here, I like that you're emphasizing this light out, but I feel like it doesn't have to be emphasized that much. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to very subtly, and this is what I mean, like, you know, you did a pretty good job nailing most of it. So all I'm doing is I'm just kind of lowering that value just a little bit. And notice what happens when I do that. It will basically help draw attention back to the light source instead of, you know, taking the attention away from that. And this is the power of subtle values, like subtleties within values. I feel like a lot of people, whenever they're painting, they don't trust the subtleties. Like they always want to emphasize and try to make things look very contrast, right? That's just the way that we think. But instead, what if, you know, we don't actually have to do that? Like notice how even just making these subtle value shifts, it's still making a lot of difference. You know what I mean? Within just like the overall values. So we don't, so I think what I'm trying to say is, you know, we can trust in ourselves and trust in the subtleties, in the subtle values. Because we want to make all the values like here not stand out too much. That way, you know, you have like these really nice light. And in fact, I'm going to talk a little bit about this light right here. So right now, this light and the midtone is very much stemming from like, you know, you can even see on this color wheel right here. It's like stemming from like the same place. It's like all stemming from like a localized like orange light color, right? But if you were to really take a look at this, that's like more blue and more red. You know, that's like a lot more blue than anything, you know, or even purple. Yeah. So I'm going to take that value that you, so, okay, so I'm going to color pick this right here, right? So we have that value that you have. And instead of increasing the value, all I'm going to do is I'm just going to shift it into a blue. Same value, shifting it into a blue, but notice the difference that that's going to make. That's the same value, by the way.
Yeah.
That's the same value you have underneath. I did not lighten that. I just shifted it into blue.
Oh, man.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And yeah, this is why I love Photoshop. It allows me to show you these things. Like here, check this out. I'm going to color pick this, right? This is like, you know, a bit more of a, you know, a grayed out, I think like a grayed out, like green, right? A grayed out green, lighter grayed out green. So I'm going to just shift that color instead of, you know, so what is the, you know, like we have green is yellow and blue, right? So let's do red and blue. So let's shift that into like a bit of a purple right here, right? Oh, let's see. In fact, you know what? I might actually kind of go in, like so. Okay, that's like a more of a lighter green. So after that, I'm going to shift it into like maybe a lighter pink right here. And then I'm just going to, yeah. And notice how that kind of helps balance everything out again. Yeah. Is this making sense so far?
Yeah.
All right. Perfect. Yeah. But honestly, yeah, like I said, like you don't really have too much that I would say, you know, too much wrong. Like I think it's very much just kind of trusting the midtones and also emphasizing and utilizing red, yellow, and blues, right? That I think is like one of the big things about this. Let's see. And I think right now over here, I feel like I'm still gonna kind of go back in and maybe even play around with a bit of the background here. Like I like what you did with the background here. I feel like the background, we can definitely still go in and push the dark out just a little bit more, right? And as we're doing that, maybe I can even like turn that into a bit more of a blue, right?
Yeah.
Because we already have like, you know, yellow and blue, and that's actually leaning a little bit with a little bit towards like an olive green, which, you know, has a bit of red within, right? So you see how I'm doing, you see what I'm doing? I'm just very much just kind of trying to think in terms of red, yellow, and blue still, like even within like stuff like this. And let's see, I actually kind of like the value that's like over here. So I'm just going to emphasize that just a little bit more. The value of like the wall. And by emphasizing the value of the wall, it also helps us kind of create a bit of a leeway into that hair right there from the green. See what I'm saying? So that way it's not just like green into the hair. There's a little something extra there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Anyways, so let's see. I like the way that you did the vignette, right? Like I used to do this too with all my references. It really helps kind of like shape everything together. All right, so let's see. Yeah, oh, and one more thing, for instance, like right over here too. I'm just gonna kind of de-emphasize and calm that value down just a little bit. But notice how subtle I'm just kind of working, right? I'm not trying to, you know, do too much with this. The wide of the eye too, right? I'm gonna kind of de-emphasize that just a little bit more and maybe just lower that value down just a little bit. Because remember, the white of the eye is never going to be white. It's always going to be a bit more dark than you really think it is. Make sense? And basically, as you can see, hopefully this kind of gives you a bit of a better idea on, you know, how to push this image going forth. Make sense?
Yeah.
All right. Cool. Awesome.
Thank
Do
you.
you have any last questions for me before I move on?
I don't think so.
No? Okay. Well, good job though.
Thank you.
Yeah, really, really good painting.
Thank you.
All right, let's see. And the last person is Cindy. I don't know if you're here or not. Let me check. Is Cindy here? I don't think she is. It's okay. She isn't. That's totally fine. I think what we can do is basically I can just kind of go in and start talking a little bit about this painting really quick. So what Cindy did over here, you know, first and foremost, when I saw this, like, you know, it really blew me away just because I felt like she did such a good job in emphasizing the lights as well as the shadows. You know, really good job emphasizing the glows. So there's not too, like I said, this is also one of the pieces where I wasn't going to talk about too much, but I decided to, you know, pick it anyways, just because there were some things where I feel like would be commonplace for people to kind of run into issues with. So for instance, like the wrinkles, like all these like excess details right here, you know, I just kind of want to talk about that. And again, this goes back to what I was saying about, you know, de-emphasizing like the value relations, right? Like trusting minute values, like trusting the fact that you don't have to always have the values be very much in your face, right? So for instance, right here, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start calming this area down just a little bit more. So what I'm doing is I'm just kind of increasing the values here. And as I'm doing that, I'm also just kind of flattening out some of this area right here. Like so. And, you know, people who are watching, hopefully you guys can already see the fact that just by me kind of flattening the shadows, it allows us to kind of get a better, you know, less of a plastic look, right, on the portrait and more of a look of, say, for instance, like a little bit more naturalism. Yeah. So this is basically me just kind of grouping the values together, right? Like, oh, I just see, I'm gonna zoom in there really quick. And this is basically me just trying to group the values that I see together. So that way, it doesn't really distract us from what's important. And what's important is basically the relationship between the light and the background, right? So all I want to do right here is I'm just going to try calming everything down, especially within the shadows. Because remember, shadows should never have too much protruding details because they're shadows. So for instance, right now, I'm just kind of doing a bit of a paint over like so, de-emphasizing that value as well. Notice how light that value is. Like in reality, that value is going to be a lot lighter or a lot less light compared to, you know, say what we already have here. Things like this usually happens, like, you know, for instance, like that mustache too. things like this happen whenever we are kind of localizing or hyper focusing on certain values. So let's say if I was only looking at it this close, right? If I was only looking at this value right here, like the light, dark, light, then yeah, it will actually look pretty good, right? But if I were to kind of zoom out and look at the whole thing, I can see there's like a whole bunch of other stuff happening. So it's important for us to constantly try our best to look at as much, look at the whole big picture as possible. But basically, okay, so I am de-emphasize that light because what I most importantly, like what I want to cover is just how to emphasize this light a little bit more. So as you can see, Cindy over here already has like a nice dark purple that I really like, that she kind of did, right? And what is purple? But like, I think it's leaning a bit more towards blue. And I see this is like leaning towards red, I mean, yellow. So what does that mean? It means we are gonna kind of go in and lean this value a little bit towards the red right here. So I'm just going to increase this value in just a little bit. And hopefully you guys can see just by me increasing that red in between this yellow and blue, kind of help emphasize a bit more of that. And then I can even shift. So I have yellow, I have red, I have blue. Kind of go in perhaps with like a darker yellow right here to further emphasize this area. And for that darker yellow, it could be like a bit more of a brown right here. So what I am doing here is I'm very much just kind of giving it a bit of a redder aura, right? Redder highlight, redder aura. And then I can even segue that into a bit more of an orange, right? About so. So hopefully you guys can kind of see just by me kind of placing a bit more of a mid-tone yellow in between that red and that lighter yellow, kind of help emphasize that form just a little bit more. We can even go in for a bit more of a saturated orange, like especially like around areas here and areas there. And basically, gonna do that. And at the same time, I'm gonna also increase a bit of the warmth that's happening here, because if you were to take a look at the portrait right here or at like the shadow, it's very cool. It's very much leaning towards blue, right? So that's why we always want to kind of counterbalance that with a bit of red, either red or yellow. But since we already have yellow here, that's why I made the decision of going red. Hopefully that kind of makes sense. Let's see. And yeah, basically what I'm doing is I'm just kind of picking and choosing all the colors right here. Now, I kind of want to still also emphasize this area right here, where I feel like, say for instance, like the purple that Cindy have gotten, I feel like we can definitely use that to our advantage and have that purple, instead of stopping there, I have it meet up where it's all the way up to the highlight of the nose, right? That will be a very good chance for us to really help emphasize that light. And at the same time, allows us to kind of go in like so and emphasize a little bit more of the atmosphere just by kind of creating a bit more midtones going from here to there to there. Here as well, right? If you ever have a light, you definitely need some kind of light aura that's kind of surrounding it to kind of help create a bit of that balance, right? Like you never want just like a lone highlight just kind of sitting there, because it's going to create a bit more of a jarring feeling than anything. So as you can see, what I'm doing here, I'm just kind of going in like so. And we can kind of hopefully take a look a bit at the before and after I do this real quick, of me just kind of calming the values down. Oop. And over here really quick, just gonna calm this down. So for what I'm doing here is I just kind of want to show you guys what it means. So as you can see before, it was like really light. Just gonna darken this area just a little bit more. And just kind of calm it down like so. Okay, and we can kind of take a look at the before and after. So hopefully you guys can kind of see the difference right here. Notice how I kind of, simplified, just kind of flattened out a bit of the shadows, as well as emphasized a bit of the light, as well as kind of created introductions to that light by introducing the idea of chromatic midtones, going from dark into light, as well as just kind of connecting the lights here as well. But anyways, that way it kind of helps, make it so that like the highlight there doesn't feel so out of place. But okay, cool. I think that's like the last person. First and foremost, again, thank you guys so much for, before I, reveal who I wanted to choose as the winner. Everyone's piece was super, super good. I decided to choose the last piece just because I felt like it really left me with not a lot to talk about. So I think I kind of based my decision just off of that. Like, there are, of course, still a few things here and there. I'll talk a little bit about it, but I'll also talk about the things I really like about the last piece. So let's see, without further ado, I think I could just segue into the last piece right here. So, okay, I guess a little drum roll. Congratulations to the last person. Boom. Kristen. I don't know if you're here or not. Is Kristen here? If not, it's fine too. I think she can like watch the pre-recording. But anyways, yeah. This piece by Kristen, I really like this piece, right? Just because I felt like, first of all, in terms of drawing, it's pretty solid. It's pretty spot on. I would say it's pretty spot on. Like, of course, like with any drawing, like there's a few things here and there, but honestly, not really bothering me too much. I feel like they did a really good job, not just with capturing the drawing, but also with capturing the overall values and kind of grouping the values together. So not just blindly following the photo, which if they did, it would look like a very different image, but using the photo as a tool, as it should be, and just kind of using that and kind of creating their own kind of compressed value, which is great. I'll still talk a little bit about it and like, showcase a few things here and there on what I feel like they could do to keep it, amp it up just a little bit more. So for instance, like right here, if we were to take a look at that dark value that they have, I feel like, we can kind of go back into a bit more warmth, right? So for instance, like if I were to just kind of do this real quick, and what I'm doing is I'm just kind of going in here and I'm just going more towards a bit more of a warmer value that's still, you know what, I'm going to raise that up just a little bit less. There we go. And what I'm doing in here is not only like raising or lowering that value down, but I'm also kind of going upwards real quick like so. And I'm really just trying to kind of stitch some of this shadow together so that it creates a little bit more of a unification or a unity of form. So I'm just kind of doing that. And at the same time, over here, I feel like I kind of want to just kind of emphasize a bit more of that green right there. So these are just some subtle things that you can kind of play with. And again, you don't have to like utilize and emphasize everything, but just add a little bit more chroma here. And I think it's going to make a world of difference. So all I'm doing here is I'm just adding a little bit of chromatic green, and I'm going to zoom in here really quick. I really like the fact that you had this nice orange right there. So let's say, okay, we have orange here, right, which is red and yellow. We have green here, which is yellow and blue. And over here, you already kind of beat me to it, but you have a bit of a pink, which is like, a light red. But let's say we kind of push that maybe towards the blue, right? So let's perhaps have like add a little bit of a lighter purple or a lighter violet, right? For a bit of the highlight. And hopefully you can note it could actually decrease the value there just a little bit. Actually, I'm gonna make the value the same. The only difference is I'm just gonna increase a bit of that violet right there. And hopefully you can kind of see, if we were to do this, it's gonna help bring out a bit more of that light, just a little bit more. But let's see, other than that over here as well, I think what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna kind of raise that warmness up just a little bit more. So I think for your painting, it's mainly just kind of raising the warmness just a little bit. Increasing the warmth, just kind of balancing out with like the cools, right? So, you know, I see a lot of cools here. Want to have a little warm here. I think what it is we are seeing here is like, you know, you're doing like, you know, that whole balance of like warm, cool, right? So the light is a bit more of a warm with a little bit of a cooler edge. That's why the shadow is a bit of a cool, but I think we can still have it have a bit more of a warmer core. And that's kind of like what it is, you know, kind of want to talk about here. But again, like I said, oh, and again, over here as well, I think what I want to do is just kind of increase that or decrease that just a little bit and emphasize perhaps a bit of a red right here. Just kind of taking that out like so. And just kind of pushing it like so. But anyways, let's see. Hopefully that kind of gives you a bit of an idea, right? But other than that, I feel like I said, like you did a really good job with this before and after, just to kind of show you just how you can kind of push this a little bit further. But other than that, yeah, when you are watching this, I would just say congratulations and good job. And yeah, I think that should do it for my showcase today. Thank you guys so much for joining in.
That was so perfect, Kai. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I always love watching you play with colors. I could sit here all day and just watch the rainbow emerge. You know?
Yeah, for sure. Thank you.
So for everybody joining us today, keep your ear to the wall. We will have another showcase coming up this year. You should expect us to announce it sometime in the end of summer. So thank you for joining us today, and we will reach out to our winner about getting her 1-year subscription to Sentient Pro. Thanks,
Awesome.
everybody.
Thank you, guys.